Welcome to Habila Ibrahim Tutorials on CSS for Beginners Easy to Learn Tutorials. My next tutorial on CSS is page layout, that is the positioning. CSS page layout, that is the positioning. The position property specifies the type of positioning method used for an element. We have the static, relative, absolute, or fixed. Positioning. The position property is used to define whether an element is static, relative, absolute, or fixed. Elements are then positioned using the top, bottom, left, and right properties. However, these properties will not work unless the position property is set first. They also work differently depending on the position value. What I will discuss now next in the positioning is when the position is static. The value static is the default value for elements and renders the position in the normal order of things as they appear in the HTML. Static position elements are affected by the top, bottom, left, and right properties. An element with position static is not positioned in any special way. It is always positioned according to the normal flow of the page. For example, div.static, position static, border 3 pixel, solid, and maroon. Our next discussion is when the position is relative. An element with position relative is position relative to its normal position. The relative is much like static, but the element can be offset from its original position with the properties top, right, bottom, and left. Setting the top, right, bottom, and left properties of a relatively positioned element will cause it to be adjusted away from its normal position. Other content will not be adjusted to fit into any gap left by the element. For example, div.relative, that is, in a div, we want the position to be relative, that is, position, semicolon, and relative. Left is 30 pixels, border is 3 pixels solid, and the color will be fuchsia. Another discussion is when the position is absolute. An element with position absolute is positioned relatively to the nearest position ancestors instead of position relative to the viewpoint, like fixed. However, if an absolute position element has no position ancestors, it uses the document body and moves along with page scrolling. Note: a position element is one whose position is anything except static. The absolute pull an element out of the normal flow of the HTML and deliver it to the wall all of its own. In this little wall, the absolute element can be placed anywhere on the page using top, right, bottom, and left. For example, div.absolute, position is absolute, top is 80 pixels, right is 0, width is 200 pixels, height is 100 pixels, border is 3 pixels solid, and the color will be red. My next discussion is when the position is fixed. An element with position fixed is positioned relative to the viewpoint, which means it always stays in the same place even if the page is scrolled. The top, right, bottom, and left properties are used to position the element. A fixed element does not leave a gap in the page where it would normally have been located. Notice the fixed element in the lower right corner of the page. Here is the CSS code that it used. We have a div.fixed. Position is fixed, bottom is 0, right is 0, width is 200 pixels, and border is 2 pixels dotted, and the color will be blue. The fixed behave like the absolute, but it will absolutely position an element in reference to the browser window, as opposed to the web page. So theoretically, fixed elements should stay exactly where they are on the screen, even when the page is scrolled. Why theoretically? Why else? This works great in browsers such as Mozilla and Opera, but in Internet Explorer, it doesn't work at all. For example, we have a navigator, and the navigation is position 6. The top is 0 and the left is 0. What I will be discussing next is overlapping elements. When elements are positioned, they can overlap other elements. The Z-index property specifies the stack order of an element, which element should be placed in front of or behind the others. An element can have a position or negative stack order. This is a heading because the image has a Z-index of -1. It will be placed behind the text. For example, we have an image. The position of that image is absolute. Left is 0 pixel, top is 0 pixel, and Z index is -1. Now in the next positioning text in an image. How to position text over an image. For example, you can position image at bottom left, top right, bottom right, or center. Or you can position it top left, top right, bottom right, or center. An element with greater stack order is always in front of an element with a lower stack order. Note, if two position elements overlap with a Z-index specified, the element position last in the HTML code will be shown on top. Try it yourself. By trying often, you will learn to get things done. So in this my small example, you can try it by yourself to see how those elements work. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel.